Hi, guys, and welcome to my free Zoom that I am sharing today on the back of lots of great feedback after my post. I posted on Facebook, oh gosh, I think it was last week, after my win at WFF PANS in the sports model class, my favorite class. And I was just reflecting on the day that I actually woke up that morning before the competition, and I wanted to share, I guess, the reality, the behind the scenes of doing something like that, of competing, because I wanted to share how simple some of the strategies are that I use to actually get myself up there on that stage. Because what I hear from a lot of my clients is that they struggle to make the connection between that very small initial action and getting a result. And we know, well, behavior analysts know that often the hardest part of any sort of change, growth, progress is identifying the first initial steps that you want to take. Years ago, my first introduction to that was with animal training, strangely enough, and appreciating that those initial steps look nothing like the end product. So we start off with something that does not actually look anything like where we're going to end up. And the classic example that I use with people is running a marathon. You know, depending what your current fitness level is, your initial step to training for a marathon could be walking to the letterbox. And I can say that because I've got my great buddy from way back who did run a marathon. She ran lots of marathons, and that's where she started. She was overweight, she was unfit, and she started by simply walking to her letterbox. Now, granted, she lived in a rural community, so her letterbox was not, like a couple of meters from her house. It was about 500 meters, but she shared that story with me, and I have never forgotten it. And I use it a lot with my clients. And she went on to do really well with her marathons. But if she'd woken up and said, I want to run a marathon, where am I going to start? I need to go out and run 10Ks, which is what many people do. Uh, she would have probably killed herself. Bless her. So the key thing is, how do we find what that first step is towards the success that we want? And my example today is starting small, starting simple, and I wanted to just tell you the story. I woke up Saturday morning. I think it was about 4:30 because I had hair and makeup at 6 o'clock at the venue. And in fact, it might even have been earlier. And my initial thought when I woke up was, what am I doing? I just lay there and thought, what am I doing? I am insane. I had prepped myself. I was feeling very unsure. I think that's the word about the finished product. But I can just vividly remember lying there going, this is ridiculous. What am I doing? Now, this is on the back of nearly 8 years of experience, right? So, what I'm also trying to share here is that it doesn't actually, these feelings don't go away, right? So, not only do you need to start small, you need to realize that these feelings of insecurity, lacking confidence, uncertainty don't actually go away. But the secret is we learn to manage them. We learn how to tackle them. And I think this is something else that I'm sharing with my clients is I talk about reduction as opposed to elimination. We don't want to eliminate these feelings because they serve a purpose. What we want to do is manage them and look at trying to reduce the negative impact they have. So there's me lying there saying this, and something in me snapped, and I'm not actually sure what it was. Maybe it was me taking my own advice. And I said, you have got absolutely no excuse not to win that class. And it was like, whoa, who said that? I said that. And in that moment, I decided to focus on that. And I just got out of bed and carried on getting ready. And when I reflected on that statement and that experience, it reminded me of something that I say to my clients, which is it's okay to have that feeling. You don't have to act on it. So I could lie there and go, what the heck am I doing? But I could still follow through with the action. And I think where we fall into trouble is when we start listening to that, what am I doing? And then acting on it. And the power that I have found is in saying, and it's linked to acceptance, really, isn't it? Accepting that that feeling is actually very normal and it's okay. I don't have to act on it and I just keep going. Now, I added an extra layer, which is something that I wanted to share with you today, which was saying to myself, actually, the complete reverse of what I was thinking, which was, what the heck are you doing? And going, you've got no reason not to be able to win that class. You've done the work. You could win it. The only barrier to it is your thinking. And the strange thing is, I then forgot that I'd actually said that. And it was only later when I was reflecting on the day that I remembered I'd said it, which I put down to the power of that subconscious. It stayed with me. And, as a behavior analyst, that's a little bit unmeasurable, right? But what I was using in that moment was the power of making a statement and just doing it anyway and getting up and just carrying on. Now, what I have said to people in the past is this idea that those feelings of insecurity, lacking confidence, anxiety, or whatever, actually serve a purpose. Therefore, we don't want to eradicate them completely. We want to manage them. And my example with the anxiety around, getting up on stage or doing an important exam or doing an important interview or whatever it might be, is that makes sure that you prep properly, right? Oh yeah, I'm a little bit, this is important. You've got a little bit of healthy anxiety to keep you on edge, which then sets you up to look at, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. The dangerous side of it is when it starts to stop you, it inhibits those other useful behaviors like the prep and the, going about to making sure that everything's in place. And that is when it becomes crippling and debilitating and actually starts to stop you taking action. And I think this is the value of appreciating that our behavior is on a spectrum, right? So we have fear, we have anxiety, and it's on a line. And we want to bring it back to, yeah, this is a healthy amount of anxiety. It's going to enable me to prep for this show, this competition, this exam, this important interview, whatever it may be. I need to use it to my advantage and not let it take over me. Now, I shared a post this morning about fear, and I have faced quite a bit of fear in the last few years and before that, but even more so recently, I guess, because the more you are out there doing stuff, the more you set yourself up for exposure, feedback, criticism, oh, what's she done now? What's she doing next? And I come from a background where, what people think about you and what they say was very important. And I grew up with that. And I've shared this before with people. What are people going to say? What are people going to think? And that has been something that I have had to look at in great detail as to the impact it has on my life. And I have leveraged off that fear. I'm a work in progress, constantly saying that, but I have flipped it around. And I said in my post this morning, there are lots of fears at play, and I am trying to leverage off the fear of regret. What if I don't do it? That is huge for me. The rocking chair test, when you're sitting in that rocking chair and going, God, if only I'd had the courage to get up on stage and go for it. I don't want to be that person sitting there with regrets. And so when I get a fear of what are people going to say, or what are people going to think, or what if I fall over, or what if I forget my routine, that fear, I go, no, that's the biggie. That's the one that I want to avoid at all costs. I'm going to leverage off that. So my tip that I wanted to share, and that I think is absolutely the key to taking that first step, to stepping beyond what you're comfortable with, is what you say to yourself. And I was thinking about it, something that's really quick and easy to share with people. The first one is, if I was going to put it into a format, is asking that question, is this serving me? So if you're finding yourself with negative self-talk, like me lying there going, what the heck am I doing? Right. If I was going to put it into something quick and easy to do, I would say, is that thought actually serving me? Saying that, is it helping me? Is it helping me to get up out of bed? Is it helping me to reach my goal? Is it helping me to get out there and connect with other people? Calling myself out, no, it's not. Okay. The next thing to say to yourself is a statement that it is okay to feel that way. So it's not serving me, but it's okay to have that feeling. I am not going to spend time beating myself up about the way that I feel. It's a perfectly natural feeling to have, trying to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do something crazy. It's okay to feel that way. The third step is taking action in spite of that feeling. Just get up, just do it. And we've heard Mel Robbins, I think she talks about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it, do that countdown. And so whatever works for you, but those 3 steps for me just give you that opportunity to call yourself out, acknowledge that it's okay to have that feeling, but just do it anyway. And the argument I've had from a lot of people when we're talking about, self-care, supporting yourself, taking action, is I haven't got time to do anything more, to learn anything else. And I think this is why looking at the language and the way you speak to yourself is a complete, just nails that, just cuts that short. You don't have to take time to do anything different. You just you're talking to yourself anyway. Why not flip it around and actually leverage off it and make it useful and relevant, and that corny word, empowering. But the language that we use and the way that we talk about ourselves is absolutely the starting point. And I did a whole workshop on self-care around that. And it just is so important to think, if I can't talk to myself kindly, how am I ever going to actually take action towards looking after myself? So if you find that excuse, I haven't got time. I mean, this is what I hear this a lot. I haven't got time to do anything extra. I can't fit anything else in. I say to people, work on your language first. That is that first small step towards that ultimate goal of getting what you want, doing what you want, feeling better about what you're doing. But also, the thing that I wanted to share today as well was that idea that it doesn't get, things don't disappear. It's not like you wake up one morning and you're suddenly can take on the world and you've eradicated all fear, all worries about what other people say and do. I think I wanted to be really, I mean, I've talked about being authentic in terms of how you adhere to your values and that what you say is what you actually do. And I think the other thing that I've wanted to share was, I still get anxious, I still get nervous, I still doubt myself. And yet I have been training and competing now, on and off for I think it's nearly 9 years. And I go, well, when are things going to get better? And I thought they don't. You just get better at managing them. Things don't get easier. You just get better at dealing with them. And I've heard some great examples of entrepreneurs talking about, you just get bigger, more important problems as you go further along. And the little stuff starts to worry you less because you're dealing with stuff that's at the next level. And that kind of made sense to me. And I thought, well, okay, so how does that apply to my life? And I thought, well, dealing with, let's use the competition as an example. I'm no longer doubting stuff that I doubted initially. I'm doubting different stuff now. And I measure that as a sign of my growth. I'm looking because I'm training myself, whereas before I had a coach right up until I think it was during COVID. I was coached by people, and then I started to put it on the back burner a little bit, and I thought, I'll just muddle along and do it by myself. And the language I used around that was interesting. And I found myself going, yeah, why are you treating yourself as less than capable by saying, I'll muddle along? And so I've started talking differently and going, well, no, you've done enough now that you should be able to get yourself to a reasonable standard. And it's all of this stuff that I start noticing. So this is the small stuff that you can then start to stack and see your progress. So that was me in a nutshell on that morning, calling myself out, acknowledging that I could achieve what I wanted to, and the only person stopping me was me and my opinion. And I can honestly say I felt the best I felt in years when I stepped up on that stage, and I didn't connect it until I got home and thought, yeah, you actually decided you were going to win. And I think the other thing that I shared with some of you, it's the class where I was wearing my sports outfit that is actually paying homage to my dad's football team. And I had it made the year he died, and I hadn't really connected that either. And when I did, I got quite emotional about that. And I thought, maybe if I'd thought too much, overthought that, it could have impacted on me. But I really did focus at the end of the day on reflecting on how I overcame that initial waking up in the morning just wanting to. Somebody had given me the option, I'd have said, yeah, right, I'll stay in bed. And you come out at the end of the day going, whoa, I pulled it off. And I'm currently working with a high performance athlete who is doing a big competition. And we are having this discussion about reflecting on past achievements and acknowledging how you got to where you were and remembering that for the next time. So what I need to do now is, because I probably won't be competing for a while, I need to log that memory, because when I next do it, I want to bring that back, because that will give me that foundation for going, yeah, I've done this before, I can do it again. And what we tend to do is we look back at the failures or the mistakes or the things that have gone wrong, and they come to the fore. And that is human nature. That is, we are hardwired to look at the risk, look at the issues, and avoid the pain and discomfort around that. And what I've said to this woman that I'm working with currently is, I said, you have to remember that you are doing something that most of the population avoid. You know, we talk about that 1%, 10% or whatever of people that run marathons, that do crazy stuff, that push themselves. And I'm not, you know, I'm not a great advocate for the whole no pain, no gain thing. I think life should be enjoyable. However, sometimes just being aware that you're doing stuff that most people avoid because it's too painful is worth reflecting on. Because that goes back to what I said earlier with that statement, is it's okay to feel that way. You know, acknowledging that your feelings are justified. I mean, I've used that expression with people going through grief as well. You know, you accept that it's okay to feel like this, because acceptance is a huge part of managing these emotions and then taking action in spite of them. So I hope that has given you some ideas for starting small, for seeing how simple it is. It's just not always easy to do. I love that, you know, simple, but it's not easy. Very, very simple. Call yourself out. Ask that question. How is it serving me? Make a statement. It's okay to feel that way. And then the action is, I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm going to, in spite of how I feel, I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to turn my negative self-talk into a, yes, I can do this. And I will do this. And then on we go. I would love, if you've got any questions, if you've got any thoughts on that, you can come off mute and share. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If anyone's got anything to say. It always goes quiet. You don't have to say anything. It was just a thought. Pop it in the chat. All my training in the States, people go crazy in the chat. Anybody got a question? Put it in the chat.
I guess, can you hear me?
Yes, go for it.
I guess I found that really interesting, because as you probably know, because we had a chat about it, I felt, well, I kind of made myself go through with the competition no matter what happened. But I did have that same, I did have a very, and I always do after a comp, a really big reflection on just what I've achieved. But to me, it always comes afterwards. Well, I guess that's what reflection is, but I still had that self-doubt, but something inside me, I guess, is it's so used to doing it now that I just followed through. But that reflection that you had, I really related definitely to that. Do you reflect on day-to-day things that happen to you, or just on major things?
No, I have got a lot more aware. Definitely. I've shared quite a bit about having that impulse to do things and noticing things that crop up as a result. I've tried to join dots, which is kind of where that I was glad I remembered that feeling, because I joined the dots from there. When, you know, when you go back and go, yeah, I felt so crap at the beginning of the day, and now here I am holding a trophy, you know, and that, what if I'd just said, yeah, nah, and not gone?
Mm.
I think, you know, the power from, for me, when we look at behavior, we often look at consequences, managing consequences. How can we change outcomes? Whereas there is so much power if we look at what are we doing before. And the example that I share with people there is, you know, setting yourself up for success and not trying to change consequences, but actually look at, well, how can I make myself start off on the right foot? And to me, it's about how you talk about yourself. That is the beginning. That's the stuff that you can do before anything else happens. And the classic example is waking up in the morning and like setting your intention for the day. And from a competitive point of view, I have tried really hard to always say, set an outcome that you control. And my one was, I'm going to have fun regardless, because you are in charge of that. You're not in charge of the judges and the criteria on the day and who shows up, but you can have fun regardless. And last year in Vegas, I was pushed to the limit because we had hair and makeup all go horribly wrong. And as women, you will fully appreciate that hair and makeup at a competition are really important. And I was challenged because I thought, yeah, I'm not going out looking like this. um, so yeah, that reflection at the end of the day is important. But I think if we can start off and set ourselves up for success by, what am I going to do in the morning that is going to enable me to have a great day regardless. And it sounds really corny, but I just keep emphasizing to people, we do control our own self-talk. And you just nailed it, Maria, because you said, oh, I don't know, but I've just got used to it, right? Which is the habit, isn't it? And if we
Yeah.
can form that habit of speaking to ourselves differently, maybe that's the answer. But great question. Yeah. And I think what you were saying as well about this knock-on effect of your daily life, it's not just major events. Yeah, I think I am a lot more aware now. I have shared some funny incidences where I'm trying to take note of stuff because I want to be able to connect the dots. I want to, and I talk about that a lot with my clients, as the more connections you can make across your life, areas of your life, the easier it becomes. Thank you for that question, Maria, though.
You're welcome. Would you, do have another question about maybe outside influences that then you reinforce your self-talk, set
Mm,
yourself up really good for the day,
mm.
and then we sometimes get those people that take joy in trying to reverse that.
Oh, you have no idea. Just, yes, I've had a
Is it,
very,
so is it just a matter of self-talk, self-talk, self-talk to kind of drown out those other voices, those outside people?
I think you're right, it is. And to be honest, as someone who, this is my bread and butter, right? I still come in like this, and I suddenly go, whoa, Kate, you're calling yourself out. And that's why I say I'm a work in progress, definitely, because awareness is half of it. And I've found myself sucked into an environment recently that has definitely exactly what you've said to me. These voices have become so loud, and what I've seen in myself is becoming somebody I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I think the ability, and I've talked to a client just the other day, funnily enough, about this very thing, the ability to be able to say, I'm good about where I am. I feel okay. It's their problem. That is, the level that I want to be at. And I'm there in some areas with some people, and I'm still figuring it out with others. But I think you see it in some incredible people out there in the community doing stuff. You can see that they don't take it on board. They listen, they hear it, but they don't take it personally. And I think that is the sign of being able to pass it back to that other person. That's their issue. You can still have compassion for them, right? And think, yes, I hear you and I get it, but I don't need to take it on board. And I think it takes practice. And it takes, as you said, it takes self-talk. You need to keep saying it to yourself. And it's definitely, for me, I think I am very good in supporting other people to push through that, and not so good at doing it myself. I am affected by what people say about me or what they think about me. And I am definitely aware of working on that. And I did a workshop on people pleasing because I get it, and I think, what do they say? You end up teaching and sharing what you need yourself. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to share that sort of stuff, because I think it's something else that has been really important for me is sharing the fact that we are all works in progress. We're just at different stages along our own path. And I don't think I can emphasize that enough, that, you can look like you've got it all together. And the last thing, I had somebody message me about sharing my stuff, and she said to me, do you think you might intimidate people? And I thought, oh, I'd never ever thought of that. I just am me, right? And I'm sharing what I do because I don't want to hold stuff back and say that I'm a coach, but I'm not telling them about what I do, because then I don't feel I'm being honest. But it was an interesting observation. And I thought, well, if people are intimidated by me, then I need to think about how I'm messaging what I do, because I am certainly a work in progress, and I want to share part of my journey, because a lot of people who know me now did not know me pre getting up on stage. And I had a client message me, and she said to me, I shared a picture of me taken about 10, 12 years ago when I was at my worst. And she said to me, Kate, where's your smile? And that reminded me. And I said to her, yeah, this was me, totally broken. And I hadn't actually realized that you're sharing photos pre-transformation, if that's the word, you know. And it is possible to turn your life around and still be going somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I've arrived. I am far from where I'd like to be, but I am also a long, long way from that very broken person who I can hardly relate to now.
Kate, I just have a couple of things to sort of ask or put forward. You just mentioned someone said to you, do you think you intimidate people? And so my first thought was, well, is it a case of you intimidating them, or is it a case of they are intimidated? You know,
Yeah.
like, do you actually intimidate them?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of play with words
Yeah.
and what's behind it. But my other thing that I was thinking about, you know, it's going to sound like a really weird question, quite potentially. You mentioned earlier something that you said was either way that you would just have fun. So
Yeah.
my question is, I mean, what does that look like to you? How is
Yeah.
how is it that that is something that you would go about doing in your competition? Is it more a feeling, or I mean, what is that? Because I'm struggling with fun right now, so I'm quite
Yeah.
interested in what you have to say around it.
Yeah. And
Or
strange.
can I insert something in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the coaching question is, when Kate says, I'm going to have fun regardless, then I would ask, what does fun look like?
Yeah.
What would we see you doing?
Mm.
Because while you might feel something, we will notice that you're having fun by your action. So what would that look like?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Very behavioral. The example I'll give you is when I went to, funnily enough, 2017, it was my first ever overseas competition. I went to Singapore. We did Peak Week in Bali, which was crazy. And during that peak week, if we'd had a film crew, it would have made a great TV show. It was drama, there was intrigue, you know, and we were told there was also a volcano. There was some eruption going on, right? Something major, and we may not be able to fly to Singapore. And then there was like this division within the team. You know, people were like, "Oh my God, it's chaos." And then there were the few of us. I think there were 3 of us, 4 of us, who said, "Well, stuff it. We're in Bali. Let's just have fun." And it really sank in then that it was, you know, one group were just going, oh, we'll never make it to the show. Well, if we're never going to make it to the show, we're not going to make it. So we then have a choice about what we're going to do, right? And we're stuck in Bali. How terrible, in an amazing resort with luxury all around us. Oh my God. How am I going to cope? And that started it. It just stuck in my head. I thought, yeah, you decide, right, what you're going to do and who you're going to gravitate towards. So obviously I gravitated towards the people that were looking at it as a forced holiday where we could break free and do what we liked. But then on show day, I started to get nervous. And that was when I thought to myself, this is looking chaotic, because already I'd been pulled out of the class that I was going to do. They said to me, you can't do bikini. You're ridiculously, I'd gone all veiny, and which was great, but not for bikini. They put me in sports model. I had no kit. So I had to borrow all my kit. my bikini was in the box with the shoes, I just thought, oh my God, and I just thought, oh, well, never mind. On the day, I ended up in the wrong class. I was in a height class, not an age class. So I was competing against 21-year-olds and I was like 50, you're just going, oh my God. And then again, I said to myself, you decide how you're going to take this day on. And I just said to myself, right, I'm just going to talk to everybody and have fun. So I found my photos the other day, and I have never had so many photos that I did selfies of people, random people at the competition that I talked to. Some people I'm still connected to this day, just on Facebook. We'll just, they'll like my comp photos and I like theirs. Don't speak their language. They're potentially 20, 30 years younger than me. And I thought that was all a conscious decision, that there was chaos happening and I was going to control what I could control. And one of the team managers said to me, he said, I keep looking over at you and you're just grinning. And there were other people having real stress because, okay, fair enough, we'd worked really hard for it. And if you're in the wrong class and if you're in whatever and things have gone wrong, but you still have a choice. And that has stuck with me. And I've tried to apply that principle in other more serious situations. That was fairly light by comparison. But what I remember was saying, I'm going to talk to people and I'm going to smile a lot. And when I look back at the photos, that comes through. So maybe it was about me doing what I could in terms of talking to people and making the best of a fairly chaotic, because it was I've never been stuck in so much chaos. All these international people who don't speak, language barriers galore. But what I discovered was I gravitated to these people that didn't even speak the same language. You're just still, people are smiling at you. And I had these photos of people that, yeah, English was a second language and not even a great second language for them. So I guess that's what you would have seen, somebody deciding and talking and initiating connection, which comes back to, communicating rather than, and I've talked about this, rather than standing back and going, well, nobody spoke to me, nobody did anything to me. But then what was I doing? And there's this weird thing that happens, and we know this, that when you are presenting yourself in a certain way, you do attract a certain outcome. And we know this from people who go on holiday, don't we? And two sets of people can go. And I talked about this recently. One person has an amazing time and another person's just talking about lost luggage, bad weather, hotel with no swimming pool, and everything seems to go wrong for them. And so if you can just start by setting yourself up for success, you're more likely to attract people and actions that support your efforts. It doesn't always work, but from my perspective, it works more often than it doesn't.
Energetic thing as well, that sounds.
Yeah, I think so, Dallas. And that's where it starts getting a little bit woo-woo, isn't it? You just
No.
from a behavioral
that sounds like you're I don't know what it sounds like, but it's like, are you just saying things to make other people feel comfortable by saying that?
No,
It's
I think a
really-
lot of people struggle with energy. I really do. What does it look like? And that's why, from a behavioral perspective, I would say somebody with, going back to what Kat said, what does it actually look like? And somebody,
But I think it's more than just look like, though, isn't it? Look, feel.
yeah, what are they actually doing? I mean, a huge one for me, and Maria, you'll relate to this, the difference that posture makes to how you feel. And I remember Joe, my original posing coach, talking to me about, head up, chin up, own the room, shoulders back, stride in. And I have talked about this in my coaching as well. When a famous person walks in a room, we look at them. Why? Because of the way they carry themselves. They're often really run-of-the-mill people when you really break down what they look like, but they own it. They're used to people looking at them. They stride in. And when you watch people on stage who are novices, and I look back at my early videos and comfort, there is that I am a lot more not shut down, not right away, but a lot more reserved. Whereas when I look more recently, I'm carrying myself differently, and it is posture and breathing and belief that can give you that energy. And I think again, it comes back to what's the beginning? How do I get to that stage? Do I suddenly just go to myself, I've got to pull myself together and walk out there? No, for me, it started with how I talked to myself. Because you're not going to suddenly break through. It doesn't matter how often somebody tells you to pull your shoulders back and walk tall and believe in yourself. If you're not talking to yourself the right way, it's very hard to overcome that.
Maybe it's a chicken and egg thing, though, because, and the reason I say that is, and I'm glad you mentioned the breathing, you were talking posture, and in my head I was just thinking, well, that leads to breath. I was reading something recently, and it's around Chinese medicine and the breath and different types of breathing. And type isn't even the right word, but this guy then talked to a psychologist and the psychology teacher, sorry, and he then decided to play with that with his students and got them to breathe in various ways. And for instance, when he had them, so in Chinese medicine, grief is attributed to the lung channel. And so when he got them to breathe in the way that attributes to the lung channel, a big proportion of them started crying. And so that's why I talk about the chicken and the egg. What comes first? Is it just thoughts, or does your posture then affect your thoughts, or is it da-da-da-da-da-da? So yeah,
love it.
There is not necessarily an answer there, but I just find that interesting.
Yeah, that kind of aligns with cognitive behavior therapy, though, doesn't it? The triangle of thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's kind of all interlinked.
Yeah.
I mean, changing your thoughts will change how you feel, and then therefore change your actions. But sometimes you can capture yourself on the thought train. In fact, I'm going over this over and over, get up and change rooms or go outside. So they're all kind of interlinked, aren't they?
Yeah. And, as the behavior side of me leans towards the behavior first, because, and I've used this example a lot with people, if you have got somebody who's feeling down and you try and talk them out of it, which is, traditional talk therapy, versus tapping into something that they're remotely interested in and getting them, as you said, Kat, out for a walk, which is the easier, more likely shift gonna be, and it's more likely the action. But often people are so stuck they can't even take that action without support. Which is why I say there is room for talk therapy, but at some point we need to move beyond that, and we're struggling with that, because what it also tends to do is it just tends to reinforce people's patterns. And the worst thing for behavior analysts is, you know, we call people out on accountability, and nobody likes to be told that they're responsible for their own behavior. We want to blame somebody else, and that's why we're extremely unpopular. Well, that's one of my reasons. But I say to people, that should be scary but exciting in the same breath, because it's scary because it's down to you, but it's exciting because it means you can do something about it. Whereas as long as you're stuck in that cycle of it's somebody else's fault, or the world owes me, or the government's fault, or you are powerless. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. But wow, guys, thank you for the stretching questions.
Thanks, Kate.
Really, really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for hopping on and, yeah, jumping in with some thoughts. I will let you go. I'm going to be doing another one, hopefully get more people on by doing it in an evening, Friday the 10th at 7 p.m. So if you're around, it would be great to have you on board, and I will be digging into another tip. But thanks so much for joining today. It's been fantastic. Really appreciated the conversation.
Thank you, Kate. Timely chat.
See you again soon.